Simulacrums are only going up in price as the league goes on, and at the time of this video there are currently more than 130 chaos per full simulacrum. So I set out to do some research, and through quite a bit of testing have some solid advice on how you can maximize the amount of simulacrum splinters you get per map and rake in tons of currency just by farming some maps. Hey guys, Big Ducks here, and in this video we're going to go over all of the best information about simulacrum shard farming, anywhere from what builds to choose, which maps to run, and how to juice up your maps to get the absolute most return out of them. Remember guys, if my videos help you out, help me out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for the latest updates on Path of Exile news and guides. Also, consider following me at twitch.tv/bigducks so you can see content just like this live on stream. And without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, simulacrum shards are the topic of interest here. These drop from delirium content, and once stacked up to 300 give us a simulacrum that allows us to access an in-game map with wave upon wave of delirium mobs, and guaranteed encounters with our two friends Onomatopoeia and Kosis, each of which have a chance to drop some pretty amazing stuff. The big one in question being the Voices unique jewel. You know, that thing that literally everyone and their grandma is abusing right now to make insane herald stacking builds and other broken stuff? Yeah, that one. So let's go over what maps are the best to focus on in each region. But before we do that, we need to talk about why these are the best maps. So the way that Splinter drops work is extremely unintuitive, so I'll forgive you if this wasn't obvious, but the absolute only thing that matters when it comes to farming simulacrum splinters is how far away you get from the starting mirror in raw distance. The further away, the higher chance you have for splinters to drop. The best way to do this is to get maps with multiple area transitions that forces you to be extremely far from the start of the map. This is the main thing to keep in mind when looking through the selection of maps I have listed here. In no particular order, we have Haewark Hamlet. The Malformation map is the best here. There's many different zones, a somewhat straightforward layout, and the boss is relatively easy to kill. Moving on to Tyrn's End, we have Tropical Island. This map has multiple different zones, an easy to kill boss, huge density, and a very straightforward and consistent layout. Now this map is the king of this method, but keep in mind, you will pay a kingly price if you're buying this map. In Glennarch Cairns, we have the Racecourse map. This has multiple zones, a somewhat easy and predictable layout, and multiple bosses. Moving on to New Vastir, honestly there's not really very many good maps here. Summon is most likely your best map, but it's a very open zone. It does have a secondary area after phase 1 of the boss that allow you to get a few more kills in, but I honestly just kind of avoid New Vastir. Now on the flip side of things, we have Valdo's Rest. There are too many good options here. First we have Burial Chambers. This is the classic. Multiple zones, a very consistent straightforward layout, solid divination cards like the Doctor, and an easy boss. Alternatives are Promenade, which has a single very long zone with a mostly straightforward and consistent layout. We also have Overgrown Shrine. This has 2 zones and a mostly straightforward and consistent layout. The next area we have is Lex Ejoris. This has one of my other favorite maps, which is Lair. It has 3 extremely straightforward zones, very solid divination cards, but it can have a somewhat difficult boss for low DPS builds. Keep that in mind. The next zone we have is Lex Proxima. This has 2 maps that have very similar layouts. It's Port and Underground River. They have extremely long, straightforward layouts, but they can have bad layouts occasionally that wrap around and completely wreck your delirium fog. So I try to avoid Lex Proxima if I can. Last but not least, we have Lyra Arthane. This has the tower map. It has many different zones, very solid divination cards, a very straightforward and consistent layout, and a somewhat easy boss. This is also one of my favorites. Now I suggest setting your preferred maps on your atlas to whichever of these maps you intend to farm. Choose at the very least a T14, a T15, and a T16 from the list and go to town. Otherwise, you could be in for investing a pretty penny to buy all of these maps, and let's be honest, no one enjoys buying maps. Now in my testing of these maps, the average amount of splinters you'll get upon a successful run will be anywhere in the range of 25 to 60. It can go lower or higher, but that is around the standard range. I did all of my testing that you see in the background with my Bleeding Bow Gladiator, which you can find a link to the full guide for that build in the top right corner of the video and also in the description. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, man, I don't see even close to that amount of splinters when I do these maps. Is this dude just like a god gamer, or is he just straight up lying? Well, I mean, you can decide how good I am at the game for yourself, but if you're interested, Now with that out of the way, let's talk about how to juice up these maps and also go over a disclaimer about this method. Be warned that if you want the absolute most out of this method and you want to run everything at peak optimization, you're going to need to be a rather solid player with a good build that can do excellent clear and has good boss damage. As I said earlier, my Bleeding Bow Gladiator is what I'm using, but there are lots of options out there. That said, you still can benefit from this at any skill level, but don't push the maps too hard as they can get seriously difficult. As for our actual strategy of what to do while you're in the map, you should be thinking about maximizing the amount of monsters you're clearing, looking for any special encounters such as Breach, Abyss, and Blight, or Alva missions, as these pause the fog while they're active and while you're near them. Move through the map quickly and don't worry about killing absolutely everything if you can't in time, as you want to be able to kill the boss of the map for an extra 5 to 10 splinter bonus. However, don't put all of the emphasis on the boss. Clearing the most monsters deep into the fog and doing the special encounters are by far the most important things to look for. Now let's talk about actually juicing up these maps to the 50 or 60 splinter tier. When you're running a map, the absolute highest priority factor besides the map layout is having Alva in your map. She provides 2 to 3 additional zones full of monsters, and these zones are super far away from the Delirium start point, thus giving us a ton of splinters. You can find Alva through sextant modifiers, prophecies, random spawns in your maps, or simply through using her master mission on the map device. Alva is by far the best when it comes to master choices for this method. Now, a few things about actually running the Alva missions: it can be very dangerous attempting to look at what Alva has to say and planning your strategy and then entering when you have a ton of Delirium mobs on your tail. My suggested method is immediately open the temple, enter, and then before moving at all, press V to bring up the temple layout screen and plan your strategy while you have the invulnerability buff from entering the zone. This also allows us to maximize our Delirium fog time outside, as while you're inside of the Alva mission, the Delirium fog does not move. Now, Alva is definitely the most important factor here, but there are a few other things that you can do. Keep in mind, these may make the map significantly more difficult. I suggest that when running these maps, you use full sextants, you keep on the lookout for specific sextants that have masters or other certain modifiers to make the most out of them, such as the Nemesis currency mod or strongbox mods, and structure your map modifiers accordingly. I also suggest that you use sacrifice fragments, as well as a scarab that provides additional monsters to the area. My personal favorite scarab is Breach, as it gives you some leeway on having to move so quickly through the map, as while you're in that breach zone, the fog pauses. It kind of gives you a little bit of a break in between rushing as quickly and as far as you can. Another solid choice here is the Piranda scarab. Keep in mind that the Bestiary scarab will not work with Alva, so you can't combine those two things together. As for the map device modifiers, my general rule of thumb here is to check the map you have rolled for the More Magic Monsters modifier, and if it isn't on there, apply Bloodlines to the map. If the map does have that modifier, the next up to bat is Beyond. Keep in mind, rolling Beyond on your maps will make them significantly more difficult and laggy, so do so at your own risk. Alternatives to Beyond would be Abyss and Blight. Once you've gathered 300 splinters, convert them into a simulacrum and reap the rewards. In my testing, under ideal conditions, I was able to maintain roughly 50 splinters a map, with it taking about 3 to 5 minutes per map. Now, this can go up or it can go down in time, depending on how good your build is. For fully insanely geared farmers, you can probably clear the map in a minute or two. For people that are maybe not so fast, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes per map. Now, if we also account for 5 or so minutes of prep time to get all of my maps lined up before I started this, that gives us anywhere from about 13 to 18 runs per hour, which ends up being roughly 2 to 3 simulacrums per hour. That's at current prices around 350 chaos an hour just from splinters, and that isn't even counting other drops, which on average is generally a few hundred chaos. That is an insane amount of currency for just running maps. Keep in mind, it is a bit difficult to keep this going at the ideal rate, but even without full buffs, you can still net 30 or so splinters a map easily, which ends up being a significant amount of currency. That's gonna be it, guys. Let me know down in the comments if I missed anything, or if you have any other great tips, tricks, or maps that you think are best for this method. Also, look forward to a map of me actually farming the simulacrum itself. I gotta do something with all these shards, and I am not gonna be selling them. Remember, if this video helped you out, help me out by liking the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more content similar to this. Stay safe out there in Ray class, and I'll see you all in the next video.